I welcome you all to the webinar session of Hibernate Mapping on the Fly. So it's going to be a very interesting session for next 1 hour. And myself, I am Sagar, and I'm basically a big data architect. So I'm in the industry for more than a decade. I started myself as an enterprise architect and working effective solutions using enterprise solutions, using database technologies, then moved myself to the big data domain, to big data products and NoSQL. So currently serving as an architect for most of the big data domain and also for the enterprise RDBMS and database solutions. So that's all about me. And regarding Edureka, so Edureka, as you already know, somebody will be already aware of. So regarding Edureka, Edureka is one of the global leading providers in online training solutions. So we provide a 24/7 support along with the live online classes and the video recordings and the audio recording. So you will be getting access to all of your videos and contents, everything via online. And also you can get a support 24/7 for all your queries regarding the course, whichever you involve in Edureka. So that's a short introduction about Edureka and also about myself. So going with the session today, so as we already discussed, so today we'll be discussing a lot on about Hibernate, what Hibernate is all about, and also some of the very interesting topics in Hibernate, like how we improve the performance using Hibernate and how effectively a search mechanism can be done with Hibernate. When I say a search mechanism, a typical text searching engine. Okay, and adding to that, we'll be also looking at something very interesting called as the batch processing, which is again a very important topic because processing as a batch, a job is very critical in most of the production applications these days. And also finally, we look back at how can we apply constraints, means the validation constraints. So that's the topic which we are going to discuss in today's session. Okay. So at the end of the session, I will be also explaining about the course details of Hibernate 2. So, and Hibernate, so Hibernate, as the name mentions, so basically it is a framework. It is a framework for relational database management systems. So what happens if you don't have an Hibernate? So basically what happens in a real-time world database system scenario, we have a lot of databases. So when we say database, we have Oracle, we have MySQL. So that's a never-ending storage. So database can be across the globe. If you keep looking on, it's endless. We have Microsoft SQL Server. So a lot of databases exist in the market today. So the real challenge what we have is to develop a solution which is not dependent on the database. Okay, that's the real challenge we have here. So when we look back, so I take a very small diagrammatic approach to explain the problematic scenario. So if I have something called a database called as an Oracle or a database called as a MySQL or any other database. So let's say this is an Oracle, this is the MySQL, or it may be any database, or any other database. So the real thing or the real problem is, as an organization, if I start working with Oracle and somewhere down the line I feel or my production cost is becoming more, I want to transform the code which has been developed. So if this is the development perspective, if this is the development code which has been going with Oracle for some period of time, and somewhere down the line due to some production cost or due to some other factors, I want to migrate myself from Oracle to MySQL, okay, or to any other database. So at that point of time, when I'm deciding to migrate from my side, from one database to other database, can I achieve the same thing which is going with Oracle in the same way with MySQL without any change in my code? Okay. The biggest question will be, can I achieve the same thing without any change in my code? Is it possible to do? Okay, can I get any framework to do this? So ultimately what I am asking is this, I need a framework in between here, right? I need a framework between Oracle and MySQL which is going to step up and tell me that you don't want to change your code, I will change according to the database. Okay, So that's where basically your Hibernate steps up and comes up in the picture. Okay, that is the reality of why we require a framework called Hibernate. So what Hibernate is trying to tell you is that develop one common code. Hibernate straightforward equation is develop one code for all database. So whenever any change in the impact of database or even within the database, I'm not even talking about a different database. Let's come even within the database. I'm now using MySQL 4.0. Now I am upgrading to MySQL 5.0. So what is the impact again? What are the new features? Whether I am in a position to handle the new features. So to answer all these questions, what Hibernate is trying to say is that the same scenario, you can take your development, you can put the development here, and you can put your database here. Let's put the development here. And let's take your database here. You have an Oracle, then you are trying to back to, then you are pulling yourself to some other database called MySQL. So this also real things which happens in the industry, right? You can't always go with one, or in fact, it is a NoSQL like a MongoDB. I'm not only talking about the SQL database, whether it's going to be a NoSQL database too. So what Hibernate is trying to say is that you never need to worry about to the database what I is speaking. In between, put a layer called Hibernate. And you only speak to Hibernate, and this fellow will take care of migrating himself to different databases. So that is where Hibernate born in the picture, and that's why Hibernate is a very, very, very powerful, strong solution. That's why we require a framework called as Hibernate. Okay. So is everybody clear why we require a framework called Hibernate? What Hibernate does to the market? So irrespective of whatever the thing, whatever may be the database, you are going to write one common code for all the databases across all the domains. A very, very, very powerful framework. Okay. So you all got a chance to, you all understood what Hibernate is all about, everybody? Any questions on the definition of Hibernate? What Hibernate is all about? Okay, fine. So now let's go back to the slide again. How Hibernate is able to achieve this? So what makes Hibernate to achieve this? So the question of what makes Hibernate to achieve this? So whenever an Hibernate has a common solution, so which has been discussed here, one common solution for all the databases. So Hibernate is going to work in a different perspective compared to normal things. So how it's going to work means, so what Hibernate is trying to do, instead of directly working with the SQL, with the database, so what Hibernate is trying to do, this is what Hibernate is trying to show you. So if you have your Java code here, and if you have your database here, if you have a Java code and if you have a corresponding database, so I have a Java code and I have a corresponding database here. So what Hibernate is trying to tell you is that only one thing what Hibernate is trying to point is that instead of you, if you have a code called as employee, let's say you have a code called as employee, and you are trying to create an employee object. All you are trying to say is that employee equal to new of employee. So the moment you are trying to create an object of employee, so what Hibernate is trying to say is that this particular thing, Hibernate will step in. Hibernate is going to step in here, is going to take the corresponding employee object, and after taking the corresponding employee object, it will automatically transfer the state to a table called as employee. That is what Hibernate is trying to say. So whatever to the employee table. So what Hibernate is trying to achieve is that whatever the code change you are trying to do with your employee class will automatically reflect to a table called employee table. So whenever you're trying to create a new object called employee, so what's going to happen is that Hibernate is going to insert a new row called in the employee table. So whatever the modifications you are going to do with your Java object, will be keep affecting the corresponding database here. So, okay, so this is why basically Hibernate is heavily successful. So the mapping of the table to the Java object is something called as ORM, object-relational mapping. So this is what basically Hibernate does. So what Hibernate is trying to do is that any change in your Java object will be reflecting to the corresponding change in the database table. So if you change anything in the employee object, the corresponding employee table will get affected. So if you are trying to update any property in the employee class, the corresponding employee table will be updated. Okay. So if you try to remove an employee object, the corresponding employee table will be affected. So that is the power of Hibernate, which is nothing called as ORM relational mapping. So what it is trying to do basically is that if you try to map your corresponding Java object to the corresponding table in the database. So whatever the changes you are trying to bring up with your corresponding Java object or the corresponding Java Pojo object will get reflecting in the corresponding database table. Okay, so all as a developer, you are totally now completely free of the database which you are going to use. You never need to worry about what you are going to implement. You never need to worry about what database you are interacting with. End of the day, you are still going to start work only on your Java object. And Hibernate as a very powerful tool or as a very powerful mechanism, what it is going to do is that it is going to migrate or it is going to transfer the corresponding state, whatever happened with the particular Java object, to the corresponding table in the database. And now, the most important point here is, whenever you change anything in the Java object, right? Whenever you're trying to change anything in the Java object, irrespective of whatever the database you are working with, you never need to do any specific thing for the database. All you have to do is that employee equal to new of employee. That is sufficient enough to create a row in the table irrespective of wherever the table belongs to, whichever the database. An absolutely powerful mechanism or absolutely powerful framework which takes care of or which smoothly handles the transformation of a Pojo into the corresponding database object. So as a developer, we will never worry about what is the database we are going to speak with and how we are to communicate with database or what are the database properties, whether it's Oracle or MySQL, or whether we need to take care of the database connection. So everything will be knocked off. You will be working only with your Pojo, and any change in the state of the Pojo will be migrated to the corresponding table by Hibernate itself. So that is why it's a very powerful mechanism tool in today's industry, because it works on a concept called object-relational mapping. So as if you are a good Java programmer with little knowledge on SQL or database, sufficient enough to work with any database across the globe, including the NoSQL database like MongoDB. Not only SQL database, Hibernate now starts supporting very heavily to NoSQL databases also. And again, the bottom line here is you are still going to work only with your Java objects, not with the tables. So that's the mechanism which makes Hibernate to be very much efficient with this. Okay. There's a question from Sandeep. I understand what you explained with respect to Hibernate, but what's the difference between Hibernate and JPA? Is JPA competitive technology for Hibernate? Very good question, Sandeep. So I repeat the question what Sandeep is asking. So Sandeep is asking now, what is the difference between Hibernate and JPA? Okay. So Sandeep, to answer your question, Hibernate actually came before JPA, which means even before JPA came up in the market. So as time progresses, what happened? Lot of other frameworks also came up in the picture. Now we had Hibernate, then we had MyBatis, like that lot of framework comes up and they started to define their own way of how the program has to be written. Okay, but in this Hibernate stood out because of the features Hibernate has. Hibernate is having a very powerful search mechanism which we are going to discuss today. So in order to solve all these things, what Java complaint has decided this. I'm going to come up with one common API called as JPA, Java Persistence API. So irrespective of whether it is Hibernate, MySQL, or MyBatis, or iBatis, whatever the framework you use, the poser which you are using, means the Java object which you are using on the left hand side, has to follow one common standard called as JPA. So today what Hibernate does is that within your Java program, whatever you write, you have two options. Either you can use the standard JPA or you can use the Hibernate API. So now in current version, what Hibernate is suggesting is that within your Java program, use all the API provided by JPA only. Okay. And once the migration of Java object to SQL table, that's where Hibernate is going to step in and take care. So JPA now comes up, acts as a common code which can be used for multiple frameworks. Fine. So you going with why the difference, more than difference now, Hibernate is almost a compliance of JPA. Got it, Sandeep? Is it answer question? Yeah. So JPA is a common implementation. So if I want to tell you in my class, this class points to employee table. Before JPA, you have a lot of syntax in Hibernate, etc. All those things. After JPA, now we have standardized that particular rule of how to write in the Java class. We will see in the example today. We will see in the example also. But currently Hibernate goes by the way of JPA only. I will show you the example. So let's go to the today's topic. So I want to start with your Hibernate caching first. Then I will go with Hibernate performance and Hibernate search. So, okay. So far, are we good, everybody? Any questions from anybody? Hibernate, impact of Hibernate, why Hibernate is important. Are we good? Thank you. Thank you very much. So Hibernate caching. So let's go with Hibernate caching. The intention of this webinar is not to go with an hello world with Hibernate at all, because that's not the intention. We have to make sure what are the powerful impacts of Hibernate which makes Hibernate so special in the market. Okay, we don't want to explain you and Hibernate with hello world or Hibernate without the SQL statement. That's pretty simple. Okay, we just want to bring out the bullet points of what makes Hibernate special. So one of the bullet points of which makes Hibernate special is called as Hibernate caching mechanism. Now, why caching is important? So now what happens? We discussed a lot about Hibernate and etc. all those things and what Hibernate does. Everything is fine. So if I go to a particular page, so let's open a particular website. So let me open up a very interesting website. So let me open up a website called as, let's open a website called as Amazon. So I'm going to a website called Amazon.in, okay, or let's go to where, okay, let's go to Amazon.in. So I'm opening Amazon.in. So the website opens up and it says, okay, these are things you have, right? Kindle e-readers, Kindle e-books, etc. All those kind of things. Okay, so and the main page is having a list of items like a lot of items like the Game of Thrones and etc. all those items. Now I'm going back. I'm trying to come to Amazon website even after an hour. Do you expect any major change? Yes, some changes will be there, but most of the items will remain same. Okay, I'm going back. Again, I'm trying to come back after 2 more hours or after again 2 more hours. I'm coming back. Again, most of the items is going to remain as it is. Only some items is going to change. So here comes a very important question. If most of the items remain same, and as a user, I'm trying to communicate with the application 4 to 5 times in an hour. So this is what the application is going to look like. So let's take an application now. So as a user, I am the user here. So I'm the user who is sitting here. So as a user, I'm coming out here, and this is the particular website I'm looking. Any particular application. I have taken Amazon as an application. So when I'm trying to track from an application, the application is trying to read the data from, with the help of Hibernate, it's trying to read the data from the database. Okay, this is what a typical application does. So now comes a very important question, or a very interesting question, is something called as a user, I'm going to keep come again and again and again and again, and I'm pretty sure there are no major changes in the application. So are you going to perform the read operation or the database operation again and again? So this is going to be a performance problem, right? Because I am very clear the data is not going to change over a period of time. Yes, data changes, but only some amount of data changes. But most of the data remains same. They are static data. Most of the data is going to remain same. If you go for a car website, particularly, let's go for a car website. Okay? I'm trying to take for a car website. So let's take a website called Carwale, something like that. I'm just going for a website called car. So here I'm pretty sure, I'm very much sure that this particular the car which I'm trying to buy, for example, called make, it's never going to change. It's going to change very, very, very rapidly. The makes like Audi, BMW, Datsun, Ferrari, etc. Every single thing which has been mentioned here is never going to get changed, right? So these are like static data. So for this, do you want to make the query again and again? Why can't you make the query one time and remember the data in your memory itself so that I can use it effectively? Right? Because this data is not changing. Whenever I'm trying to come up, the make is same. The Fiat, Ferrari, etc. One or two is going to get added. Very rarely it's going to get added. And again, within the RD also, most of the data is going to remain same. Right? So maybe a model will be added once in 2 months. So as a user, I keep coming back to the application again and again, and Hibernate is trying to fetch the data from database again. So instead of this, the biggest question here is that, the very big question, what we have to ask is, to Hibernate is that, because the data is remaining same again and again, why can't you remember the data here itself so that this particular thing what you are trying to do here can be avoided multiple times? By doing this, what's going to happen? By doing this, the performance is going to increase exponentially to a very greater extent. So this is where Hibernate steps in and comes up with a very, very powerful technology called as Hibernate Caching mechanisms. So these are the features of Hibernate which stands up and makes it completely different when compared to other frameworks. Now what Hibernate says is that I am giving an option called catch. So which are the parts of the data in the application which is going to remain static and which is not going to change frequently, and the change is expected only over a period of time. I'm sure in all the websites, data is not going to change again and again. Yes, there are some data which is going to change frequently, which cannot be avoided, like stock and share marketing is totally understandable, you can't avoid it. But in websites like e-commerce websites, the thing's not going to change often. Only in a very special auspicious way, like a New Year bonanza or a Christmas bonanza, it's expected that time is going to be a frequent change. So Hibernate steps up and it says, I have a very, very powerful mechanism. What you can do is that instead of going over to the database again and again, I'm going to provide you a concept called as cache, where you can use the cache very much effectively, so that when next time when you're trying to read the same data, if the data is available in cache, I will reply from cache itself. Okay. How about OLX type size? Okay, Inderjit, as I said, even in OLX also, right, you will be watching some static data. Okay, the caching, what we are trying to say is that it's not all the data. Which are the data which you are very sure like not going to change over a period of time, put them in static. Okay, even in this website also, not everything is going to be static. Yes, something is going to be keep changing. Okay, so this is to make sure the application performance is improved faster. whenever they see caching, it's a good question in the field. So in the field, it's asking what about OLX type size. So one has to remember, when we say caching, there is no point in putting a data in the cache which is frequently changing. Okay. So if you take this particular page or this particular website, listing of cars, so this is static, which is not going to change over a period of time, and the listing of models, this is static, but budget is not static. Budget is something which is going to change very frequently. Depends on the area, depends on the function, depends on the profile of the user, etc. The discount is going to keep changing. So that is not static. You can't do anything. Again, body type is static. Okay, and sell your car is something not static, because you can rate yourself whichever you want. So the most use the cache effectively to such an extent to that the performance can be increased very, very effectively. Okay. So Hibernate caching can be achieved in two ways. So let's go and do a demo on Hibernate caching. Hibernate is having two types of caching. One caching at the session level, one caching at the session factory level. So basically, Hibernate has two important objects. One is called as session, one is called as session factory. A session is the one which is the initial point of contact for Hibernate, where all the ORM mapping, etc. is going to, where the Java code to ORM mapping is going to happen. So if the data is available in the session itself, it will give back the data from there. Otherwise, it will take the data from database and then put back to the session. The secondary level cache, which is coming from the session factory. A session factory is very important, because a session factory is the place where all your connections, everything has been made up. How to get the connection, etc. So secondary level cache is something which will come up when the first level cache fails. So in the secondary level cache, you have an advantage of using third-party level cache mechanisms. There are a lot of third-party level cache mechanisms which can provide you a very, very efficient caching concepts like cache. There are a lot of caching techniques available in the market today. So if you use the secondary level caching, okay, then you can enhance the Hibernate with other cache mechanisms too. Okay, so I am going to show you a secondary level cache which is very, very effectively performed. So now we are going to create a table. We are going to insert some data into table, and we can see the Hibernate statistics, which is going to clearly tell us that how the caching will be performed. Okay, so let me take a particular Java code now. So let's go and do that, how to improve the memory performance with Hibernate. So the first thing with doing any Hibernate project is that going and understanding what is the database we are connecting and which is the database we are going to do. So let me open up this. So one can see very clearly this is basically an XML file which can be configured. So this is what we are trying to tell up. So we are trying to say we are trying to connect to a database called MySQL. The username is root, the password is root. We are trying to connect to a database called as products. Okay. Dialect is something which is for Hibernate understanding. So Hibernate has to understand which database we are going to use. Hibernate understands only with the help of dialect. So this is where the caching strategy I am trying to mention. I am trying to mention the caching strategy called as cache region factory. So here I am trying to say you have to use a cache called as cache. Okay. So going back to the program, there are two particular Java classes. One is called as product and one is called as item. So this is what I was telling even to Sandeep's question also. So Sandeep, if you look back, you can see everything is JPA here. Java x.persistence, Java x.persistence. We are just telling this particular class called product is pointing to a table called as product. And this add table is coming from JPA. So the code will now on will be using only the JPA APIs. But the migration of this particular product to the corresponding table product will be done with the help of your Hibernate. Got it, Sandeep? And for two others also. Okay. So if most of the code, if you see, they will end up like this one these days. You can use Hibernate API also. Hibernate is also API support called as table. Okay. And other simple pointer things which says this particular column is this particular field is pointing to a column called name, column called status, etc. So basically, if you are going to do some work with this if you are going to do some action with the object of this class, it is basically going to reflect to a table called product. As simple as that. That's what the difference is going to happen. Similarly, I have a product called item, same thing. So here I'm catching only the items. I'm not going to catch the product. So I'm adding one special feature called as add catch at top of the thing. I'm telling whatever happens with this particular person, you are going to catch. So first let's create the database. If the database is already there, I'm going to drop the database called products. So I have opened the MySQL. You can use Oracle or anything. So show databases. So there is a database called product existing. So I'll delete the database. By looking at an existing product, how do we understand if it's Hibernate or JPL? Is it based on imports? Okay, Avani, there are two ways to identify. Okay, one is based on the imports in the Java code. Okay, and the second thing is that if you go back to your properties, the definition of the properties which you are trying to connect, that you will clearly say which session factory, which transaction manager you are trying to use. There it will clearly say I am trying to use Hibernate. Okay, the connection properties will clearly come and tell you this guy is using something called as Hibernate, because the dialect we cannot avoid. Final one. Yeah, so that's another option, we can't avoid that. Okay, so let's drop the database called products. Sorry, drop database products. So let's create a very fresh database. Create database products. Show tables. Basically we have, let's use products. So show tables. So basically it will be a very empty database. Basically there is nothing is there. So now let's try to insert some data. So let's create product items. So as I clearly told, if you are trying to create a new product, okay, if you are going to create a very new object, that is enough. That's going to insert the data into the Hibernate. So I'm creating product 1 called as mobiles and product 2 called as laptops. Nothing else you have to do. All you have to do after that is Hibernate.save. That's the beauty of the product. So if you see the create product, nothing I'm doing. I'm calling a method called as add product, which is just using Hibernate.save. So let's create the product items. So run as Java application and have a look at here. There is no Hibernate API anywhere. There is nowhere we are telling it is MySQL also. Everything comes up while loading the property file. So run as Java application. Okay. So easy, inserted some product. So similarly, let's go and create items too. So I'm just creating the product and just creating the items. So let me create items too. Okay, so now let's go back and let's see what is the tables available now. So let's say show tables. Interestingly, 2 tables has been created and nothing special, as we said. It's a ORM matching mechanism. Whenever any change is happening in the Java particular object, the same thing is going to happen in the table. So let's say select star from item. These are the items available, and let's say select star from product. These are the products available. Now I am going to query item 3 times. Okay, list item, list item, list item. So I am expecting first time to come from database, next time to come from the caching. So let's go back and say run as Java application. Let's see what this guy is doing. Okay, so this is the performance metrics this particular guy has generated. Okay, so now when you see what happens here is that it tries to say I have taken this much of time, okay, and I put this called put command. It's trying to indicate. Sagar, could you please show the code for creating table in Hibernate? There is no creating table in Hibernate, Kavita. So what you try to do is that when you create an object called this, so when you say product p equal to new of product and save, It will try to see whether the table is there. If not there, it will create a table for you by itself. That's the power of Hibernate. Fine, Kavita? That's why it's an object-relational mapping. The scenario in which the table exists in the data case. If there is a table already exists in the database, do we annotate the POJO class based on the underlying table, or there is a tool to create the POJO from the table? Okay, Sandeep, there is a tool called as Hibernate tools, which will take care of creating the POJO from the table itself. Fine, Sandeep. There's a tool called as Hibernate tools. Okay, now going back to this corresponding output, right? So going back to the console. Sorry. Let me run the corresponding Java program again so that we can understand how the cache works. So if you look back in this, if you look at the corresponding output which has been generated, so let it finish off. So if you see here, the first time what it is trying to say is that I am trying to put 10 objects to cache, okay, and there is nothing in the cache. You have to read from the database itself. The second time when it goes, what it's trying to do, I'm not putting any object to cache. 0 objects has been put to cache because no new objects is added, and I am reading from the cache itself. 10 L2C. Okay, a very important thing. Okay, and this makes a very contrast difference of total time taken. The total time taken before was 44210. Now the time taken is 7499 nanoseconds. Very contrast difference, right? Again, the third time it is trying to say that, okay, and the third time it is trying to say this again, 10 L2C. I am reading from the cache. Again, it is trying to minimize to 7105 nanoseconds. Okay, a great performance, right? A great performance. So if you look at a very huge object, it's going to be an extremely greater performance. So that's why Hibernate is very powerful in the caching mechanism concept. How to print this session matrix? Okay, so all you have to do is that I'll go back to the application context.xml. So we have some properties for Hibernate. Okay, so can you able to see that? Sure, the properties. So there are some properties like hibernate.showSQL, means it will show all the SQL. There are some properties called hibernate.cache. So there is a property called as hibernate.generate statistics. If you put that statistic to true, you will get all the statistics. Fine, Shah? Is caching default, or we have given some input properties? So caching is not default, Ramakrishna. You can see here the product is not cached. Okay, the item is cached because I'm mentioning called as add cache at top of the table. The product is not cached, but item is cached. You have to mention add cache at top of the table. Fine, Ramakrishna. Okay, so the real thing is, the real beauty of the application is, which makes very nice, as you see, first of all, the biggest thing is the metrics clearly said how much time it has been taken. We've seen some huge difference. So think about a very real application, how much difference it's going to make. And the second thing, as I said, there's nothing special like we mentioned, like you have to do this particular database, etc., all those kind of things. This guy himself stepped in and started accepting the new things. Okay. Fine. So with this, still we can discuss a lot of things on the performance caching. Once you join the course, we'll be explaining more and more on this performance caching. Okay. What is important? The important thing here is only two things, Rashid. It is totally not dependent on the database. It is having an API itself to catch and remember the result. It never depended on MySQL or Oracle. It itself developed a cache and it itself remembered everything. Fine, Rashid? It never told I need to remember the information in MySQL or Oracle. It itself is having a very important concept called as caching mechanism. Okay, Rashid. What is the decision made on what data should go to cache and how often the cache is refreshed? Can we set that? Yes, you can set that. So you can see here, right? There is a concept called item.java. Okay. So you can see add cache, right? So this fully makes like how the cache should go. So what happens is there's a file called ehcache.xml. Okay. If you come back here, I'm defining the I'm about to come there. Anything anyway, you asked the question. So here only I am taking a complete definition of how much element should be in the memory. Okay, how much time it has to be idle and how much time it has to refresh itself. So all the information I'm putting here itself. Okay, and here you can see I am putting a very important thing called as is persistent equal to false. I am trying to say everything remember in your memory itself. If you say this persistence equal to true, it can even use your system memory, system's hard disk itself to hold the cache. Fine, yeah. Fine, Shah, is that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, so like this, as I said, once the moment you are in the course, you will get more and more information on this. Shah, is your question answered? Are there any Hibernate certification available today in market? Or why haven't we used persistence.xml? Okay, this is what the point. We used JPA code with Hibernate mechanism. Hibernate not follows persistence.xml. Hibernate follows with its own concept called as hbm.xml, all those things. So after that, it's Hibernate actually. The persistent.xml is a full-fledged implementation of JPA. Fine, Avani? Okay. Are there any Hibernate certification available today in market and are they worth pursuing? Yes, definitely, Sandeep. Always, as long as it's not something you, as I said, now Hibernate starts supporting NoSQL too. Hibernate is now supporting NoSQL to a very great extent. Okay, but we have imported the Java x.persistent. So that's what Avani I'm trying to say. See, there are a lot of things existing in the market today. There are things like you have JPA, you have Hibernate, you have MyBatis, you have Hibernate, like that. A lot of things existing in the market today. So we don't want to impact that in the Java code. So in the Java code, we need to maintain one particular standard. Okay, so that's the reason we are in the Java code. We are using JPA. After the Java code, how the Java code has to be used, that's your framework will decide. And we are using Hibernate there. That's the reason we use JPA inside the Java code. Finally, also we use Hibernate on apps. Exactly, yes, Rashid. Hibernate is also used. Wherever the RDBMS steps in, wherever the database has to be optimized, Hibernate will be used. Is there any size limit for Hibernate caching? No, you are. As I said, you can see there is an option called as disk persistent in the. Okay. Yes, fine. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's go back to the next feature of Hibernate called as search mechanism. So this is going to be very interesting. Okay, there's something called as Lucene. So Lucene is basically a library which performs full text search engine capacity. So Hibernate search is a concept which came very recently in Hibernate. So how Lucene works? Let's see an example of what Lucene does. Then we'll come to Hibernate search. So in the moment I'm talking something called Lucene, so I'm taking a Lucene. Okay. So Lucene is coming from Apache framework, which is traditionally very much popular in the market for text search engine mechanism. So if you want to search anything in text, then Lucene is the one which is widely used in the market today. So what basically Lucene does is that I will just take it as an example to explain you what Lucene does. So whenever you give a particular text, right, here we have text like a lot of 5 words like Edureka provides, Edureka makes, learning new technologies, Edureka has highly qualified faculties, and learning online provides. Okay, and I am adding some index. Okay, basically you can add index by yourself, or Lucene also can generate the index by itself. Now what happens? What Lucene basically does is that when a particular search is happened against these 5 words, the 5 words what Edureka makes learning new technologies, Edureka has highly qualified faculties, etc. All those kind of things. So when you perform a search over all these corresponding words, what Lucene is going to do is that it's going to use this index very much effectively. So let's consider I'm trying to find the keyword Edureka how many times it has come in the article. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the 5 article, I am trying to find how many times Edureka has come. So losing is such a powerful mechanism or such a powerful thing we use that what it's going to do is that whenever this particular Edureka is searched against all the articles, it is going to go over the index, and from the index it is going to search. So when I execute this particular application, so it says very smartly in a very fast effective way, it says these are the terminals Edureka comes. And even when I do a system search also, I don't think so this much effectively fast I will get the result. Why? Because it goes by the index. So now what they taught. So when I say select star from employee, or when I am trying to find an employee name from the database which is having 10,000 records or 20,000 records, it is going to take some time. So to find a record, why can't we come up with a search concept itself? That's why I'm telling Hibernate is very powerful mechanism framework. So Hibernate, what it decided was, why can't we do a search on the database? Very interesting, right? Why can't we do a search on the database? Okay, so why I cannot do a search on database? If Lucene is able to do search on the file, why can't I do a search on the database? That's where your Hibernate search one. So what Hibernate is going to do, it is going to use your Lucene index concept over the data in the database, so which is going to result in a very powerful search mechanism, and also going to extremely improve the data search capacity within your database. That's where Hibernate search one. These are all came very recently with a very powerful mechanisms from Hibernate. So now we can provide a search mechanism over the data in the database. As simple as that. Okay. So you are all getting a point what Hibernate search is all about, everybody? Why Hibernate search and what Hibernate search does? Can I quick guess? Very interesting, right? So Lucene is a very powerful mechanism already existing. So why can't I do the same index-based mechanism with Hibernate search? That's what Hibernate search wants, right? So if you look back into this, I'm just going over the code of Hibernate search. Okay. So I'm taking a Hibernate Lucene and I'm going to show an example, Shivkumar. I am going to show an example. The intention is to make sure everything is proved bang on. Okay. So listen here. So there is a Pojo class. For that particular Pojo class, yes, rest everything is straightforward. I am telling these are the corresponding attributes of the Pojo class, and for the attributes of the Pojo class, I am trying to say these are the columns it should point to, and also I am trying to say this corresponding class has to point to which table. I am telling you have to point to a branch table. Now I am telling a very simple two important concept called as add index and add analyzer. Add index is telling this particular data for the database should be indexed. Indexed with the help of whom? You have to index with the help of an analyzer who is coming from the Lucene called as standard analyzer. Okay. So only these are the most powerful mechanisms of Hibernate, because even in previous example, this example, not a major code. Only annotations are added. Now what we are going to do? Let's go and insert some data first into the database. Okay, so a very simple operation. I'm going to insert some data. Okay, so we can also try to see which database it is pointing to. A database called as search. Okay, so let me try to insert some data into a database. So let me drop the database first. So drop database search and create database search. So show tables, sorry, I have to use database search and show tables. So table will be empty now. Okay. So now what's going to happen is that I'm going to populate some data. I'm just creating it, as we always said, we have to just only create an object. That is enough for Hibernate to create the data. So let's create the object first. So let's say one as Java application. So it inserted, see how smartly Hibernate has inserted, it executed the insert query also, so which we never need to worry. All we are going to create only tables. So now when you say show tables, a branch table is created and you can see select star from branch. So the branch is having 4 things. So what is the next thing I have to do? I have to index these things. So I am going to have a mechanism called as index. So what this index is going to do basically, if you come back here, I'm going to keep on create index for all the columns, all the rows within the Hibernate itself. Okay, so Hibernate is going to create an index. It's going to remember the index for all the data available. You can see here I am telling full text session means this is from Lucene API. I am creating the index for this. So now I am just trying to do indexing. I am not trying to do anything else. So now I am running this application. I am indexing. So Hibernate is creating indexes within internally. It's going to remember within its memory. Now the first time you are all going to see a very interesting thing called as search branch, not select branch. I am going to search the branch. I am not going to select the branch. So search branch is a code which is going to search using your Lucene API, like how the before does. So what it does, it creates a query. The query says find a keyword called as test2 coming under the field called as branch name. Okay, this is a search query. It is not a select query. A basic search query from Lucene. We are trying to say you have to search a name called as test2 coming under the field name called as branch name. So what is coming test2? It's coming 1 and 2 is coming as test2. So interestingly, this is a search query, not a select query. So when you say run as Java application now, you can see it's going to be extremely faster and it's going to provide the output very fast, just like that. Very fast, because it's a search mechanism. It says total branches are 2 and the branch name are test2. Now one can ask me a question. How can I get a particular columns which I did for in the select statement? Okay, they have a concept called as projection, where while searching you can also say which columns you want. So while searching, I'm also telling what are the columns I want. I'm telling along with the searching, also bring the branch ID too. Okay, that is called projection is all over. So a very brilliant concept where instead of going for a select statement, it is now doing a search mechanism. So along with the previous result, I am also getting the branch ID and branch name. Okay, so as I said, once in the course we will be discussing more and more on how the search mechanism works. Just to bring an example of what are the new things available in the market in Hibernate and how effectively Hibernate can work. Okay, whether it provides the same type of performance for the huge number of records, definitely Shivkumar. It will Shivkumar. It will. You can trust me, we already did a POC on that. When should we use Hibernate Search instead of Hibernate HQL or Hibernate Criteria API? Okay, Shyam, here's the thing. Okay, Hibernate Search came up very late in the market today. Okay, and it can provide you complete mechanisms what your Hibernate HQL and Hibernate Criteria does. But only one thing you have to remember very clearly is that Lucene is a full text search engine, so it won't provide effectively on blob objects under blob or glob objects because it is a completely full text search engine. So that time you cannot go for this Lucene search. Fine, Shah? Answer your question? Yeah. Shivkumar, is the question answered? Where is the index? It's Hibernate internal memory, Shivkumar. It remembers it's in internal memory. Once the moment it's indexes, it takes care of it. But it's not having limit. Okay, Shivkumar, again, to answer your question, Lucene is providing a functionality of the indexing file itself can be stored in a file system. When you join the course, we'll be explaining all those things, Shivkumar. Like how we cache, right? It can store in the file system. Lucene is having the capacity. So with the help of Lucene, what we can do is that we can store the complete index happening itself in a file system. So I might have an example, maybe I can show you in the Lucene itself. So for example, see this particular example, okay? Maybe I can show you this example itself. So here I'm telling the index path, Lucene is having this particular capacity. The index path itself has to be stored where. So let's run this particular example. Maybe it's trying to read a file. Field content, new file, reader of file. So get document. Let me see that from where the file is coming up. Create index. So create index of new filter of writer. Okay, fine. Data path. So data path is telling come from C Edureka data and C Edureka index. So let me create a small data there. Okay, so I'm just created in my some data in my D directory, something the same example which we did before. I created in the file. Okay, so the location is dedu data. So let's take this, put this corresponding location in the file. So it is actually dedu data. Okay, and I'm telling create the index in the particular file system. So you can even do that. These are to tell you that there is no limitations. So that means there's a Java application now. So it says total files indexed is 9. So now you can go back. Let's see that it's created a file called dedu index. Okay, can you see a file called index has been created? So here the indexes has been created. Okay, you can see the complete indexes has been created here. File should go. Just to tell you that there is no limitation at all. Okay, so can you also share these two projects? Yes, sure, I can share the same. You have to contact support for that. Fine, sure. Okay, yeah. So let me quickly go over two more examples. I know it's a 1 hour webinar. I just try to take 10 more minutes. Is that fine for everybody? Can I extend the session? I just want to go for two more quick examples. The next thing is another important very Hibernate feature called Hibernate validator. So this is again a very important feature. Okay, and after validator, I will come back to your batch mechanism. So this is a very interesting thing. So most of the time, what happens? Most of the scenario, validations becomes a bottleneck. You have to add a constraint in your database. Name cannot take more than 50 characters. Okay, add a constraint there. Okay. Otherwise, you have constraint like don't allow null values. Okay, add a constraint. So for every single thing, you have to go and touch the database. Some constraint, something, somewhere, some constraint. For this constraint, for that constraint, whatever may be the constraint, we will end up writing the particular constraint to the database. Unique constraint, not null constraint. Okay, a lot of constraints. A unique constraint is just an example. Max length, min length, the corresponding field should not be more than 10 characters, or it should not cross 100 characters, and endless actually, and some custom. So let's consider you fall up a scenario where you have to come up with your own constraints, which is not available also. So what is the solution for all these things? Hibernate steps in, comes up with its own concept called as Hibernate validator. So now let's take the same branch table. Okay, I am trying to see, you can see here, and I'm not doing anything in the table, I'm not doing anything in the database. At top of that, I'm telling at min of 6, which says the length should be only 6 characters. At not blank, which says you should not allow blank values. Okay, at size, which says min equal to max equal to 5, the zip code, or a very complex regular expression. This says it is allowed only 0 to 9 and the corresponding text. Otherwise, this is custom. I have wrote my own custom also. Check special character. So this is where I am writing myself. I am writing my own custom Java annotations, a particular Java annotations to put the constraint. So by this, what happens? I am very less coupled to the database. So now when I'm trying to execute, for example, let's say validation util, I'm trying to insert something. Okay, I am trying to say, for example, I'm creating a branch. I'm telling branch dot set of branch ID of 7. Okay, but the allowed was what? Minimum of 6. Right. So let's say branch dot set of branch ID of 3. Branch ID I am setting as 3. Okay. So let's try to run this application now. Run as Java application. Okay. It says validating bean. Okay. It constrains 1 validation. So let's say it says here very clearly constraint violation. This must be greater than or equal to 6 because I have put only 3. Okay. So if you try to increase to 7, so now what happened? It will say that particular error is solved. So you can always say run as Java application. Okay. So next, that particular constraint is gone now. Another constraint has come. It says branch name. Now the violation is not about ID. Previous I had a violation. Now it says the branch name cannot be empty. Okay. Here it says the branch name is empty. So make sure the branch name is not empty. So like this, you can provide constraints to any level. This is really a very clean, neat feature because for constraints, writing a database code is a very bad practice. By this now what happens, the custom validations is a very great thing here. The custom validations is something which Hibernate provides called Hibernate validator annotation, check special character, check special validator. These are like your own thing where you can write. Now you can write your own constraints, your own validations. No need to depend on the database. So that is another very critical, cool feature which I really like, the Hibernate validations. The final thing which we are going to discuss something today is called as the batch processing. Okay, have you ever imagined I want to insert 10,000 rows into my database? Okay, what is batch processing is all about? Batch processing is always a tedious task. What I have to do is that I want to consider 10,000 rows. Okay. Now, if I want to insert 10,000 rows without Hibernate batch, what's going to happen? Without Hibernate batch, if one likes to have 10,000 rows, the thing what's going to happen here is that you are going to repeat the statement 10,000 times again and again. How effectively this can be achieved? So again, Hibernate comes up with a concept called as Hibernate batch processing. So the Hibernate batch processing is a concept where one can now insert huge number of data into database in one shot. So I'm writing a for loop here and keep on processing 10,000 data. How this is possible? This is possible because Hibernate is having a concept called as hibernate.jdbc.batch size. So it is trying to say, declare this particular property. Now I am telling 50. So it is going to take 50 objects in one shot of time and it's going to insert everything in one shot. Let's execute this application. Let's see whether it's going to create any memory issue or not. Very challenging one, right? Let's see that. Let's say show databases. So drop database bank underscore DB. Now create database bank underscore DB. The real challenge is going to be now. So let's use bank underscore DB. Show tables is nothing. I am going to insert 10,000 rows now in one shot. Now means in this class we are going to insert 10,000 rows in one shot with a batch size of 50. Okay, and with the help of Hibernate, let's see whether it's going to break or whether it's going to perform successfully. Okay, I think it's more than 10,000, right? 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, lakh. Actually, almost, I'm sorry, I'm inserting 1 lakh rows. It's not 10,000, it's 1 lakh rows. Now, let's insert. Let's see. A real database will fail. It means there are a lot of things. So let's see what is happening. I'm inserting 1 lakh rows, so this is 1 lakh. This is not something normal and all. The trick here is for every 50, we are taking 50 in one shot and we are clearing. We are taking 50 in one shot and we are clearing. So let's go to this first of all. Let's see table is there. So branch table is there. So let's say select count of start from branch. Let's see how many records has been inserted first. One can see how many records has been inserted. 1 lakh rows has been inserted. And you can also say select start from branch to see what happened. Sorry. How smartly Hibernate has done, right? So you can see it's going to be keep on showing everything. The same thing can be achieved by JDBC batch closing concept. Yes, Kavita, the only difference is going to be, as I said, Hibernate, the first thing is you don't want to write any connection code, etc. all those things. The second thing is, for every 50 records, if you see here, right, I am flushing and clearing so that it processes 50 at a time, and when next time comes, it again restarts like nothing has happened. Okay, it treats every 50. At that point of time, it always thinks I am dealing with only 50 records. It's not thinking I am dealing with 1 lakh records, which makes the performance to a very great improvement compared to normal things. End of the day, it's also using the same thing only. If you see at the end, it's using the same JDBC patch, but it uses the JDBC patch in a very effective way. Fine, Kavita? Yeah, that's the thing. Just how smartly the everything is JDBC, right? Fine. So in the Hibernate cluster session by itself, as we set the batch size as 50. So sure, it again depends on the implementation which you are going to use. As per my implementation, what I used, I am making the flush has to be done by myself in order to make sure I am flushing at the correct time because of the batch. Okay, there is nothing. If depends on the mandatory. If a complete Spring-based application, right, Spring takes care. Here it's a main Java application, so I am stepping in and I am taking care. Fine, sure. Completely depends on our application, the implementation materials. What happens if the batch fails in between? Acid movement, it will roll back. It's acid, it's atomicity, consistent, isolations, and dependency. It always rolls back and any major failure happens. Application will never crash. Yes, it will roll back. That's the power of Hibernate movement. It will roll back. It will roll back. That's the power of Hibernate. Okay, so going back to the slide, so that's what I've got some of the most critical features of our course provides. There are a lot of important things apart from this also. So once you join, these are the topics will be covered, like the introduction to Hibernate, persistent session factory, mapping, inheritance, criteria language, transaction filter, search validation, OGM value, the NoSQL, everything comes up in the picture, like how to deal effectively with the malware, and you get a very powerful certification project at the end. Okay. Adding to this, I also like to tell you all, for this particular course, if you register, there is a 25% discount is there. Currently the course is having a 25% discount. So anybody likes to register, please go ahead and provide the things. Okay. Can you have this PDF and code for reference? Yes, Bhuman, you have to contact the support for this. Once you contact the support, and they will be providing the same. Fine, Bhuman? You can contact the support. The supports are available here. Always you can go to the Edureka website. You can find the support number. If you contact the support, they will be in a position to provide. Okay. So that's the main feature. And thanks for everybody. Thanks for the session. Please kindly fill the feedback at the end of the session. It's very important. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the feedback. Please do the same at the end of the session. And thank you all. Thank you very much. And please try to participate in this course. And thank you, Shah. Thank you. Please fill the feedback. And I hope you are seeing in the course correctly. And as I said, there is a 25% discount. Please make use of it. And I hope to see you all in the course. Thank you very much. And thank you all. And please give the feedback at the end of the session. Thank you.